Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to be swapping out the generator on our gas Oliver 550 here for a Delco alternator. We're going to do it on the low down dirty cheap, and I'm going to show you how. So what's happened here, I've got the wiring all fixed up on this thing. Everything is how it should be according to the diagram and the instructions that came with the new wiring harness that's on it. I finally found them online. And there's something going on in here. The regulator clicks when there's no ignition or anything turned on. The regulator is livening up the back of the alternator and it's getting hot, and it's not a good situation. So what we're going to do, rather than muck around with it and spend a whole bunch of time, this is not a show tractor. It's just a worker bee. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to pull this thing off and swap an alternator on it for literally 20 bucks or less. This should work on, well, it will work on any Oliver 550. You just follow, gas or diesel, follow along what I'm doing. It should work on Super 55s, I would guess, because they have the same engine. And a lot of the other Oliver tractors that use the 6-cylinder version of this Waukesha engine, I'm sure the generator is mounted on it the same way. These directions will kind of be for a tractor that has the Oliver cluster gauge. This guy here that uses a generator light rather than an amp meter. If you've got an amp meter, it will be slightly different, and I'm not going to cover that here. But so these directions will be for anything with a Delco alternator mounted or Delco generator mounted like that, and an Oliver cluster gauge. Let's get started. First thing we need is an alternator. And these are the two most common ones you'll find kicking around. You can buy rebuilt ones. Like sometimes when I'm stuck, I can get a rebuilt one on Amazon for $78 Canadian, which is probably about 50 bucks US. But anyway, I bought, I was at a swap meet, and I bought these two alternators that allegedly work for $30. So what you'll see here, this one is a 10SI, and this one is a 12SI. They hook up and work the same. What is different is these are the earlier ones with, lower outputs. I kind of think the most you can get out of these is about 60 amps. And then they came with the 12SI, which you can see it's a bigger case. You'll find these on newer cars that have higher electrical loads. They made the case a little bigger so they could fit a bigger rotor and a bigger stator in it to get, obviously, more output. This one here, it's stamped right on it. You can see there, 70 amp. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to test these things. Oh, and before we start that, I'm going to show you which one not to get. This here is the original GM alternator, the externally regulated one. So if you get this guy, you'll still need to hang a voltage regulator somewhere in the tractor, and, well, you're just into a bunch of wiring again. So what you'll see is, you see, it's got this plug that goes straight into the back. That's not the one you want. You want these guys, and I'll show you the difference. See how the plug is on this one? It comes this way out of the case with the two of them side by each instead of in front of each other like that one is. Stay away from that guy. There's also another one that you may get lucky and find at a swap meet, and this area here will be completely plugged off with no terminals. And that one has got a one-wire conversion on it. So literally all you have to do is connect this with a cable to your battery. And once the engine starts and this thing gets spinning fast enough, it'll turn on, and no other wiring is required. The only problem with them is you have to unhook the battery when you're not using the tractor, because basically what happens is the regulator, although it draws very little current, it never shuts off, and it will run your battery down. All right, so we got this thing set up here in the vise. There. So clamping it into the vise gives us a ground. So we go from the vise, the ground, to the ground side of our battery here. And then on the hot side, we've got a heavy cable going to the power stud, or the output stud of the alternator. We have a test light going from the hot output stud to terminal number 1. All right, that's our test light. This is takes the place of the tattletale light on your dash, the generator light. And then this one here Number 2, hooked straight to battery voltage. And lastly, we've got a voltmeter hooked up across the battery. Now, my 1/2-inch battery gun here with a 15/16 socket, this I found turns these things fast enough to get them charging. So theoretically, I'll get this thing going. The light should go out and we should start seeing it charging on the meter. So let's see what happens. And you can see, despite what Buddy told me, this thing don't work. That's plenty fast enough to get it charging. So we'll try the 12 SI and see if we can get it going. We do also have the opportunity, there's a D hole in the back. They call it the D hole. You can reach in through there and I'll show you. Yeah, the D hole. You can reach in through there with a pick. Is it this one or this one? And you can short out the, no, it's this one. You can short the regulator to ground and full field it. And then she should charge. I guess we could try that. Watch this. I don't know, maybe because it's been sitting for so long, I shorted the regulator out with my little awl here. And now watch the light. There, see how fast it stopped? That's good. Okay, so that one does charge. So we could get this out of the vise here. It could have also just been a brush, one of the brushes on the rotor not making great contact. So we'll get this out of here. We'll get the 12 SI hooked up and see how it works. Okay, let's try this guy out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this one's a stud. I wonder if I've got a big electric drill that goes faster than this. So yeah, there's nothing happening here. This guy's a dud. So we're going to go ahead. We'll use the 10 SI. We'll put this guy aside. One day we'll open it up and have a look inside it. It could just be simply a bad regulator or something that's preventing it from running. Or just a stuck brush. There's a lot of things, simple things that'll keep these old things from running. Alrighty, so we'll start this procedure by just getting the generator off. It's pretty simple. There's a bolt in the bottom here, a 5/16 bolt. Another one in the top here. All the wires are already disconnected. We're not too worried about those. We'll sort them out after. Oh, and unhook the battery before you start. Once we get the generator off, we need to take off this little adapter bracket. We will have to modify this. We have to shorten it some. But bear in mind, if you ever decide you want to restore your tractor, you could just get a little spacer and put it in there to replace what we're gonna remove, and you'll be just fine. Oh, look, they've put a water pump on it somewhere along the line. That's good. And you can leave this on here. It doesn't really affect anything. Now we have to determine how much to cut off our bracket so that the alternator can go on and have the pulley in the same place. So what we've done, I've got them both sitting on a 15/16 socket, and we're going to just double check here that we are good. You can see there that the straight edge is level. It's bottomed out in both pulleys, and it's level. So that means we've got both the generator and the alternator where they need to be. So what we need to do is measure the difference here, and that difference is how much we have to cut off our bracket. And it is exactly 1.5 inches. We can see this thing is 2.5 inches tall, and we need to remove 1.5 inches, which will make it 1 inch tall. So what I'll do is mark it, and then I'll cut it a little to the waist side of the mark so we can dress it down, because you have to make sure that this thing is as straight and flat and square as you can get it, or else that will affect the angle that the alternator sits on, and we don't want the alternator sitting on an angle. And we need to, before we start sawing, we need to, this hole is on center where we need it to be, but it doesn't go very deep. So what we're going to do is drill this baby right through, because we're going to need it drilled right through to finish this up. So this is a 9/32 drill. It fits pretty well in the 5/16 thread that's in there. So we're going to go over to the drill press and push this right through. There we go. So I got this thing held in the vise, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it with the Sawzall, and then we'll go ahead and dress it down. I will not use my milling machine to dress this thing down, because, well, not everybody has one of those. I'm going to show you how easy this is to do without anything special. I am, however, using my cordless Sawzall to cut it, just for the sake of it not taking so long. You just be really careful and make sure you get her good and straight. I will be through this in no time. Nice and easy. I'll see you when I'm done. There we go. Cut it pretty straight. Now we'll just let it cool off a bit. Then I'll get it mounted in the vise, and we'll just touch the top of it, and we should have it smooth and straight in no time. Now we're going to get this thing trued up. To do that, we're going to use a rasp, a nice sharp rasp. It eats through this cast iron like there's no tomorrow. So you're just going to go nice and slow. We're not concerned with putting a bunch of pressure on it. We're concerned with getting it flat and square. Let the tool do the work, and just do your best to keep it level and straight. Pretty good. And I mean, you can eyeball it. Looks pretty darn good to me. These things are great. They will knock down high spots on your bodywork. I've used this thing to fix a warped exhaust manifold before. Okay, there we go. We don't want to go too crazy. That's good. Now here's our next step. When we attach the alternator to this, there's a 3/8 bolt that goes through it. So you can now drill this hole out to 3/8, and you'll have to use a nut on the back side of it. But there's not, sorry, we're out of frame there. There's not a ton of room on the back for a nut, so you might have to grind one side of it down a little bit. But you can do that. But what I do is I just drill this to 5/16 and then run a 3/8 course tap through it, and just literally bolt the alternator to it. Alrighty, we got our tap through 3/8 course. Now we'll have to find a bolt that'll reach through the alternator and screw into there. Well, we got our bracket back on. Now what we need to do is get the draft tube out, and it mounts on the same bolt as the alternator. So what we have to do is drill that hole out to 3/8 so that our new 3/8 bolt will pass through it. So you can see there how it mounts on quite nicely. On my diesel 550, which it's all the same stuff, I was able to use the same belt, but I had bought a new one, like the right belt for it. This, I'm just using whatever belt was on here, and I kind of think it's a little too long, because you can see here we're all the way out at the end of the adjustment. And that's okay. In the end, once I started tightening up this bottom bolt, it kind of twisted the alternator straight a little bit, and I was able to give back some of the adjustment that I put into it. So it's all good. The belt is good and tight. We've got some adjustment left, so we'll just leave it like that. Now we can get to the important part, the wires. So what we've got here is the original wiring that was coming down. So this red one here, this is the charge wire. The purple one is the ground side of the alternator light. And the yellow one is the power feed that goes back up to the headlights. So this one here, this is the one that actually charges the battery. If we just go ahead and hook that up to there, this wire isn't really heavy enough to carry the current that this alternator is capable of putting out. It could be upwards of 63 amps. That's I'm pretty sure the highest amperage they got out of the 10SI. And even if this wire were to be able to carry it, it has to pass through the contacts in your ignition switch to get back to the battery. And that could burn up or melt your ignition switch. We don't want that. So what we're going to do, the only wire we really have to add in this, I've got a nice piece here of number 8. And we're going to go straight from here, the output stud of the alternator, around the back of the engine block to the battery post on the starter solenoid on the other side. And then these ones, I'll show you how to hook them up, and we need one more little jumper. So you can see what we've done here. Here is our new charge wire, right? We've got that on the stud. I'll deal with the other end of it in a bit. And now these two feeds that go up to the dash, the yellow one is to feed the headlights. The red one is our original charge wire, but it still feeds the ignition switch. So this will feed not much really. It'll basically give us the juice to run our ignition. And it'll power the indicator lights, the oil pressure light, the generator light. And that's pretty much about all that'll do. So that's good. So what we're going to do is get this on next. When you're loading conductors onto a stud, like on an alternator, a generator, a starter, always the heaviest one first. You don't want to put little crap like this on and then put the charge wire on and make it have to work through this. That is priority. So you put them on in order of priority. That's the most important. This one is the second most important. And this little guy, all this does is supply power to the voltage regulator. He's going to go on last. So we'll get these kind of arranged nicely, and we'll get the nut on and tighten it down. The purple light, or the purple wire, that is the ground side of the generator light, goes to terminal number 1, which is the closest one to the output stud, and we jump battery power to terminal number 2. This is the power that actually runs the voltage regulator, and this wire here turns it on and off, basically. So here we've got this is our charge wire coming around from the other side, and like the other side, the cables are on the solenoid stud in order of importance. So the actual battery cable that runs the starter is on first, then the charge cable, then this little orange guy that goes up and feeds the ignition switch. Okay, so let's see what happens here. The ignition is off, so we shouldn't get any sparks here. Nothing. There we go. So now if I flick on the ignition, I should see the oil light and the generator light both come on. Yep, good. We're good. Now all we need to do is fire it up and see if it actually charges. That's great. She's charging at 14.4 volts. Our alternator swap has been a success. Well, that'll do it for that one. Now we know how to swap an alternator onto an old Oliver tractor for, well, I'll call it less than 20 bucks. And that's 20 bucks Canadian, which is like $14 real money. I got these two alternators for $30 at the swap meet, so I'll call it $15 each. I'll call it 20 for this one and 10 for the other one because the other one don't work. I'm still not 100%. I'd like to mount that one on an engine and get it spinning fast and see if it'll come to life. But anyway, it doesn't matter. 20 bucks for an alternator, a few bits and pieces we had laying around the shop, and there she is pumping out 14.4 volts. Couldn't ask for more. Anyway, I'm going to go now. I hope you find this useful. I hope you enjoyed our video. I hope you'll come back and see it. That's a lot of hoping, eh? I hope you'll come back and see us again soon. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.